In this part of the video, we are going to discuss about risk management from an Islamic perspective. So basically, the concept of risk management has a deep roots in the Quran and Sunnah. If we see one of the important event which happened in Islam is the hijrah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam from Mecca to Medina. So the risk management activities which have been taken during the process of hijrah is, for instance, the Muslims who went to Medina in a small group, and even some groups went to Ethiopia before making their way to Medina. So the action taken by Muslims during the process of hijrah from Mecca to Medina is actually showing or indicating to us the understanding of risk management, understanding of the risk inherent in the migration of the Muslims, and also the attempt to mitigate this risk by moving in small groups. And even the Prophet ﷺ, on the night that he left Mecca for Medina, he had his nephew Ali radiallahu anhu to replace him in his bed in order to give him sufficient time to live from Mecca to Medina. And this reduced the risk of being caught by the Quraysh leaders. And there are numerous other examples actually in the Prophet's time showing to us the recognition of risk management as risk and risk-reward trade-off. During the various battles that took place at that time, risks were assessed and either taken on or mitigated. Sometimes the Prophet take on the risk, but sometimes the risks are mitigated. In some cases, it was considered wise not to wait for enemy troops to arrive in Medina, but to advance towards the oncoming troops and strike first. So this one we can see in the battle of, if I'm not mistaken, in battle of Uhud. Battle of Uhud, if I'm not mistaken. So the Prophet SAW go out and do not wait in Medina, but in contrast, he advanced towards the oncoming troops, and they strike first. The building of trenches around the city was another loss prevention taken to stop the advancing forces of the enemies in the Battle of Khandaq. So the Prophet SAW, through the suggestion made by Salman Al-Farisi, so they dug a hole or a trenches around the city. They make the we call, apa dia panggil, the trenches in order to prevent customer from which can easily come into the cities. So the rewards were compared to the potential risk, and the risk then taken on accordingly. This action shows not a desire to reduce or remove risk, rather it was aimed at weighing the options and taking on the risk when appropriate. So this is very important, the issue of we call it as issue of risk trade-off, risk management and risk reward trade-off. Perhaps the most famous example of risk management, which has been quoted famously in the Takaful, is the hadith regarding a Bedouin who entered a mosque and left his camel untied, as we have already discussed in previous class. This instruction to not blindly take risks is also shown in the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says that the believers does not allow himself to be stung twice from one hole. In Malay, we have what we call the peribahasa. Jangan dipatuk ular daripada lubang yang sama, lebih kurang. In the end, our efforts in understanding and managing risk come down to our intentions, as the rewards or deeds depend upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. As we seen earlier in the Surah Yusuf, the Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam gave advice to his other sons on their trip to Egypt to find Yusuf, which was seen to be consonant with the subject of risk management. Yeah. So ideally, the risk management should minimize wasteful utilization of resources. Yeah. So this important point. Risk management should ensure that each and every activities minimize wasteful utilization of resources, whether it is financial resources or non-financial resources, and also to reduce to an absolute minimum the negative effects of risk or maximize the realization of opportunities. So this is what we call as risk reward trade-off tadi lah. We minimize wasteful utilization, and at the same time we reduce the negative effects of risk, or we can also maximize the realization of the opportunities and goals. From an Islamic perspective, these goals must be aligned with the maqasid ash-shari'ah. Yeah, so this is what the risk management perspective or risk management concept in Islam. Our purpose or our objective, the goals that we would like to achieve should always align with the concept of maqasid Sharia. In takaful operations, the Sharia Council plays an important role in organizational risk management, especially with regard to Sharia risk. Sharia risk includes the following. So there are different types of Sharia risk. First one is risk on the Sharia Council making an inappropriate decision based on inadequate knowledge of insurance concepts or inadequate information being provided. So this is one of the potential risk related to the Sharia risk, which is the problem or the issue where the Sharia committee making inadequate or inappropriate decision. The inappropriate decision can be based on, first, whether the Sharia committee have inadequate knowledge on insurance concepts, or the Sharia committee have been given inadequate information by the institution. So that is the first potential Sharia risk in insurance. Another risk of the takaful operator is not adhering to the guidelines set up by the Sharia Council. So when Sharia Council have already decided on certain issues, so this decision should be put in place, put in the policy, put in the SOP and manuals of the banks, so that everybody are fully aware what has been decided by the Sharia committee. Not only fully aware, but also practicing and adhering what has been decided by the Sharia Council. The risk of non-compliance with Sharia is considered as a major risk, as being mentioned in the Islamic Financial Services Act. For example, the authorities can cancel the registration of an operator if the operator is not conducting operations involving any element which is not approved by the Sharia. The Sharia Council can be taught as a judge, yeah, in making decision based on the material presented to it. Unlike a regular judge, however, the Sharia Council does not get the benefit of hearing from the prosecution and defense attorneys. In most instances, the Sharia Council hears presentations and explanation from the management of the operator. So this is the process of decision making in a takaful or in any Islamic financial institution. Yeah? So in general, the Sharia Council will hear presentations and explanations from the management of the operator. For example, if there is any new products, yeah. So the management will table the proposal to the Sharia Council. In the normal courtroom, the attorneys carefully formulated the problem in order for the judge to properly make his rule, but in the Sharia court, for the problem may not be stated properly, which might lead to an appropriate ruling. So similarly, the issue can also happen in Sharia council meeting, where if the management did not do not provide adequate information to the Sharia council or Sharia committee, so the Sharia committee would derive an inappropriate decision. Some measures to lessen the risk of an inappropriate definition of the issue to be ruled upon include the following. First, the management should ensure the proper transparency uh, in decision. And this can be done via the publication of all Sharia Council decision and problem statement in the annual accounts of the takaful operator. So this is one of the things that should be done by the takaful operators. Yeah. So in any decision given or deliberate ruled by the Sharia Council, so their ruling should be communicated to all relevant personnel and departments. Second, ensure experts such as actuaries and accountants present issues of a technical nature to the Sharia Council. So technical matters is very important, especially in banking and financial institutions, because understanding of the technical issues would definitely help the Sharia Council to understand the issue better. And then the third is strengthen regulatory council, Sharia Council oversight of the rulings of the individual takaful operators. And lastly, standardized issues such as surplus and investment profit sharing. So some issues can be made standardized, only need one rulings, and give the parameter and the guidelines, and then the banks or the takaful operator can just follow the parameter and guidelines. The risk of the takaful operator not adhering to guidelines set up by the Sharia Council is small, but in reality, this can happen as minor changes are made to product, system, and methodologies. This risk can be minimized through Sharia compliant audits. Yeah, so in some cases, there are changes made to the products, to the activities of the bank and its operations. So sometimes the management might forgot to update the changes which happen. So in this case, the another entity which we call as a Sharia compliant audits can make checkings based on the Sharia committee decisions, then compare it with the practices of the banks or the takaful operators. Yeah. So from there, they can highlight any different practices from the one that have been approved by the Sharia Council. So that is the risk management activities, yeah, in the takaful company. Some perspective based on Islamic perspective on risk management, and then we also discuss on the risk management activities within a takaful operators. So thank you very much. We will continue in the next video.